Hello, and welcome to the show Goldsquadrongays. It's the podcast where two Star Wars loving gays break down each episode of their favorite Star Wars TV shows while also being gay as hell. I'm your host, Bradley Brower.
And I'm Charles Rogers, and he can say whatever he wants because he dubs in those intros. I know we've mentioned this on a previous episode, but I need people to know he just says whatever he wants to start the episode and ends and I'm Bradley Brower, and I'm like, that's my cue to set the intro.
That's really funny. I was just feeling really lazy today. Normally I have it up and I'm like, I'll read it out as well as I can, but today I couldn't get it up fast enough, so you're stuck with my fake intro.
It is definitely one of those Fridays. It is Friday, isn't it? I've kind of lost track of how to tell time.
So I've been playing one of those Instagram games on my phone, and I use the phone's date and time to cheat. So I keep jumping forward. Like I think my phone is on like June 32nd right now. So that's why I keep fucking up my phone's like calendars. I really don't know what day it is.
Ah, that makes a lot of sense. No, I was telling Bradley in the pre-meeting, like I woke up early this morning. Like I'd set my alarm and woke up early this morning. I woke up, I was like, why did I set my alarm early this morning? And then I rolled over and I opened YouTube, and right at the first thing was Bad Batch episode 4 review, and I went, oh shit, that's why I got up early this morning.
Exactly. You're like, oh crap, I forgot. I usually make my breakfast. I like sit down before like I even start the episode. I pull up Disney Plus and I'm like, okay, well, this is a really relaxing kind of like Friday morning ritual.
It's a difference between the two of us. He watches the episode and like has fun with it. I watched the episode and I've got like Wikipedia up in one window. I've got my notepad in front of me. I'm like, I am ready to go. And then we will inevitably fuck up something on the show.
Right.
Like it's almost a running gag at this point that I will fuck up whatever it is I didn't research. That's the thing that will be the most prevalent.
Yeah. Normally what I do is I take like quick notes. And then if I have something, I'm like, oh crap, I got to go look that up on Wikipedia, or I have to go look that up to be like, what is that? Like, what do you call the walrus guy, breed or whatever the species is? Like,
I hope you took notes of that because I didn't. I noticed it. Or I noticed the one alien from Rebels, but I didn't necessarily take a note of who it was. We have to be careful too, because we have to be careful because like if we did all the trivia all the time for everything, these episodes would be like 2 hours long.
That's true. So we'll just say this was our abridged episode.
We made some strategic cuts.
Right. Of course. Yeah, we meant to do that.
We did. It was intentional.
Intentionally left out Walrus Guy's cousin.
It's so people have something to respond to in the comments.
Oh, of course.
Before we dive into the episode, we've got a few pieces of news I just want to bring up real quick.
Mm-hmm.
There was a bit of a kerfuffle on social media the other day. Dave Filoni has apparently been an executive creative director at Lucasfilm for like a year.
Okay.
And they just updated the Star Wars website to match his new title. And so people thought he had just been promoted to executive creative director.
Okay. So people were like, whoa, he just got promoted. Good for him. But he's been promoted.
For a year. I bring that up for two reasons. It's him and two other people are the executive creative directors at Lucasfilm. I bring that up for two reasons. One, I just want to bring it up because he's awesome and we love him. And it's whether it was a year ago or whether it was now, it's well-deserved for him to have more creative control. But there was a line from the Variety article, and this is why I wanted to bring it up on the show. There's a line in the Variety article. They're advancing Mandalorian, Book of Boba Fett, Ahsoka, but they said that Rangers of the New Republic, and this is to quote directly the article, is not in active development. Or it's a paraphrase, kind of.
I mean, to be fair, in TV land, that could literally mean anything, but
I noted here, I was like, so what is that? What does
that even mean? Yeah.
Exactly.
That's tough to say. I mean, theoretically, I would say it's canceled, but in Star Wars world, no one's ever really gone. So I mean,
Right.
you never know.
Well,
We
I was
thought,
thinking, it was like, I wonder if there's some speculation that it maybe was the spinoff that was meant to center around Cara Dune.
Oh, okay.
And there's a possibility that because they sort of backed off of it a little bit, they still announced it in their big slew of
Right.
things, but they might be like working on retooling it. They might be like working to find like a new creative team. It's just
Yeah,
interesting that those three, they talked about Ahsoka, Book of Boba, and Mandalorian, but they mentioned that Rangers of the New Republic and Variety is not in active
right.
development.
Yeah, maybe I mean, that could be a lot of things. Maybe they're just looking for a new team to make it or new direction. I mean, honestly, to solve the Cara Dune problem, you could literally just, it's the same character, just change the name. Like, you could just say, oh, this is
Or
just a random ass woman. Like, it
I
doesn't have to
think
be,
I think the guy from Kim's Convenience should be the new lead. So that's the pilot, the guy who plays the pilot. I can't remember his name, but he plays the other New Republic pilot in season 2, the one that's not Dave Filoni. Paul Sun Hyung Lee.
Okay, I just looked him up. I remember I thought you were looking. So when
Paul
I looked up
Paul
Kim,
Sun Hyung Lee
I
is
looked
his name.
I looked up Kim Convenience, and I was like, Simu Liu. I was like, that's Shang-Chi actor.
Yeah, Simu
like,
Liu is Shang-Chi.
no, but
Yeah.
the other, I see what you mean. The Paul Sun guy, you're right. He
Paul
was the
Sun
one.
Hyung Lee. Yeah, he's I think the show should center around him
Well,
personally.
interesting. I mean, I would rather have Shang-Chi as the center of the show, but I mean, that's
I
just,
mean, I'd rather just have more of that guy in general.
I mean, yes, I could
General.
have. Ooh, actually, if he's in this, would he be a Disney trifecta? Would Shang Li?
No, he hasn't voiced anything yet, but he'd be on his way to the Disney trifecta. So the last thing that I want to cover before we dive into the episode,
Mhm.
and we'll make this quick, but it's time for the section of the show called Charles has to clarify the thing that he should have done research on before we ran the last episode, but Bradley sprung it on him without telling him in the pre-meeting. So he wasn't prepared and misremembered it. We'll workshop the title of this segment, but I want to talk about the short story of MSE 6 and Men. On the last episode, we were discussing this short story that apparently has gay Tarkin in it.
Yes.
And I said that when I read the story, I read it as being the one officer who asks, TK420, why aren't you at your post? I went back and checked it. And I am right that it's never explicitly stated who the older author or who the older character is that TK420 is in a gay relationship with. But between the fact that there's like stuff in his quarters that's from Tarkin's home planet, and the guy acts just like Tarkin and swears vengeance on the rebellion for killing his like boyfriend, and the author is apparently like liked tweets on Twitter and talked about how he likes gay villains. After further research, I have determined that it probably was in fact Tarkin, and Wikipedia agrees with me.
Hallelujah. Pride Month
I
confirmed.
am not sure I like this. I like more LGBT characters.
Correct.
I even am fine with those LGBT characters being villains. But when you have the Star Wars equivalent of like one of the biggest mass murderers in history, the guy who blows up a planet and kills untold billions of people, who the concept of ruling through fear in the Star Wars universe is literally named after, making that character gay it makes me slightly uncomfortable, if only at this point because I don't know if we have enough representation that there's a good cross section yet. Even a villain, like, I'm fine with, but having like the biggest mass murderer
I
in
see what you mean.
galactic history be gay, and not only be gay, like be pissed about his boyfriend dying and have that be the reason for him wanting to
Mm.
like blow up Yavin instead of, just the normal reason, which was he just really hates the rebellion. Like,
Right.
so I think maybe that's why I didn't consider it when I first read the story. We will revisit this as time goes on and representation marches on. I may eventually become more fine with this.
Right.
We will now dive into our episode, which is called Cornered. Bradley, what did you think of this episode overall?
We kind of spoke about this in the pre-meeting, but it was very much a pretty simple, cut and dry, purely, I guess, action focused episode. I can't really say there was anything wrong with it because there wasn't too much there was a little bit of development for I would say maybe Omega's character, but other than that, I mean it was like, all right, this is it. And I was right last week because I said this episode was either going to be the Fennec episode or it was going to be the Rex episode, and it was the Fennec episode.
We're just going to let Bradley do our guessing from now on. We're gonna let Bradley. I'm not going to be allowed to make any guesses about what the next episode is going to be because I'm right about everything except that. No, I thought that other than introducing one of our main series villains,
mm-hmm.
it didn't really do a whole lot to advance.
Yeah, no.
The overarching plot, which is fine.
But yeah,
it was a fun episode.
It was fine, and I think it introduced her in a good way. Without getting too much into it, I feel like the show does something that a lot of shows do a disservice to their villain, which is make them incompetent. And what I liked is this episode kind of made Fennec lose, in quotes, but without making her look like a bumbling idiot. Like, oh, I can't beat the heroes because I'm just stupid and I just happen to be evil. Like, we can see her clearly do stuff throughout the episode where like she kills people and she like is very competent, and then it's just like, oh, they just happen to get away.
I actually don't think she kills anyone over the course of this.
She kills like 3 people.
She kills like 3 people?
Yes, that I can think of off the top of my head.
Oh right. Now that I think I didn't take notes of that.
Oh, okay. I mean, I didn't take like actual notes. Maybe when we get to the part, I'll be like, oh, there's the part where she shoots the cop in the face. There's the part where she takes the guy and she literally throws him out of the side of the car. And
I do have a note about that guy. Okay. No, I thought it was good. I thought letting her kind of have her own episode to be introduced. Like, they didn't advance a lot of the Bad Batch,
right?
But that time was spent on Fennic Shand,
mm-hmm.
which I think we were all here for anyway.
Yeah, because honestly, everything else was just kind of like a rehash of other stuff. Like, well, maybe we can just get into it, and then
we gotta fix the ship again.
I mean, yeah, I was gonna say
off of Omega again,
right?
We know by now what the show is going to be.
It's like, what is the lesson that Omega has to learn every episode? I feel like that's what the show is now. It's like, what is her episode? What morals or what lessons does she have to learn?
It's a kid's show for kids. That makes sense.
Right.
We open up with our intrepid heroes on the ship again. They're looking to hide at a planet called Idaflor, which Wikipedia describes as an astrological object that's apparently deserted. It didn't exist before this episode. It's completely new. There's no trivia about it.
Gotcha.
Omega is upset because she's lived on Camino all her life and she wants to do some more exploring. Right. And Hunter's like, you can't do that.
Before we settle down on a planet.
Before we settle down on a deserted planet. I like how Hunter doesn't say no. Right. He says not
yet.
Quite yet.
Yeah.
Which is a good way to relate to the kid that, no, we're not killing your dreams. We just can't do it yet. But they decide in order to scramble their ship thing so that they don't get detected or whatever, they need to land on the closest planet, which is called Pandora. My phone autocorrected it to Pandora.
When I was writing my notes, it said Pandora, and I was like, excuse me, Notes app. I don't like that movie. Do not autocorrect my Star Wars thing to a fucking thing about blue people, alien, Pocahontas in space. Okay.
Yeah, I can't imagine like what it would be like to land on a planet with blue people that live on it.
And did you notice that there were the species that were home world species to this planet were all blue?
So, fun thing about Pandora, we have seen it before. It featured in a few episodes of the Clone Wars.
Okay.
One of my personal favorite episodes about colonialism. Uh, no, really, this was a thing.
Okay, you can't even make this up. This is like it's all
This
like
is a thing.
connected.
The episode is one of my favorite episodes. It's about like how colonialism is bad.
Oh my god.
And I love it. It's great. They featured in that episode. We've seen it a few times, but most famously, the Pantoran species are the species that were portrayed in Revenge of the Sith by George Lucas and two of his children. In the opera house scene, George Lucas has his only cameo, along with two of his kids. They are Pantorans who are going to the opera.
Let's go to the opera, Dad.
His third child is the Padawan that gets gunned down.
Yes, I knew that. Where what's it, Space Jimmy Smits or whatever? He's like
Bail. How did you forget Bail Organa?
I don't know.
So we're gonna land on Pandora. I noted here that Omega is very much an audience surrogate, and that she wants to go see other planets, and then she's excited to go to Pandora, and we're excited to go to Pandora. It's nice that she's expressing some of the emotions of the audience here.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's what every episode's going to be now. It's just her. She's that thing that grounds us to the team. Like she's us. We are her. We are Omega.
She is us. We are. We are one with the Omega.
Yes.
So they land on Pandora. Pandora has kind of I love the design of Pandora because it kind of has a vague like Ottoman Empire thing going.
Yeah, I noticed some of the rooftops looked very Arabic, like kind of style. I liked it a lot. Yeah, it was really cool, but also like a very techie city. Like I don't know, it was really weird how they did that. But
so they land on the planet. Dock worker or the guy who runs the dockyard is trying to extort them.
Yeah,
for money.
Yeah, I like how Wrecker's like, but you said that you were gonna not tell anybody. He's like, yeah, for like the right price.
Give me money. And then he turns around and sells him out anyway, but
and who does he sell him out to?
To the one, the only Fennic Shand, portrayed here by the incomparable Ming-Na Wen, reprising her role. Much. I'm so happy to see Fennic Shand in this.
I am too, because I was really worried because like she seems like almost a throwaway character in the beginning of Mando season 1. It's like we saw her, and I guess I should have known better that if they're gonna get her to be a character on a show, she's not just gonna be some one episode throwaway character. They had a future plan for her in mind, because if you look at her IMDb page, she has never not played anything that is like super important, very like long term, like so it's very or
you know what you're getting into when you cast Ming-Na Wen.
Yeah,
and what you're getting into is you do not put Ming-Na Wen in the corner. If you're going to cast her in something, you have a plan for that character,
right? Which I love, because Mando season 1, you know, we barely get to see her in action. I mean, you know, she's kind of there, and then she gets captured, and then she, you know, dies. Theoretically dies. We don't know what happens in Mando season 2 because we haven't seen Mando season 2. So as far as we know, she's dead.
Yes.
But we never got to really see her. Now, to be fair, I think I do forget watching this show that she's supposed to be younger here.
See, I did notice that with her model. I noticed that she looked, you know, in her very early 20s.
Yeah.
Maybe I would put her at. So they did a good job of like she's clearly a young character, but like she's also clearly been around the block a few times.
Right. She's kind of in her bounty hunting prime, I would say.
Right. I mean, the underworld is flourishing right now.
Right.
So that would make sense that maybe she got into this in the war and was successful at it, kept her head down. But it is good to see her. And clearly, we'll get to this later, but clearly she is not a one-off character either.
Right, exactly.
They leave Tech and Wrecker behind to do repairs on the ship. They're leaving Wrecker for some reason to do repairs. Don't know why they thought. Maybe because he could lift things. We see him lift some of the components out.
Yeah. I guess it's just they just need him for his strength. I guess like it's just like, okay, I need you to lift up that heavy piece now. Put that heavy piece over there, like.
Yeah, and it like that's what he does, and I'm like, I'm sure he must have some other uses to the team besides this, but I haven't determined what those are yet.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, this is the point of having certain people around. You know, you just have them to open up jars and reach high things on shelves. Echo is also in disguise.
I love his disguise, by the way. His like droid disguise, because I guess it's not that he's not technically far off from being a droid. He is a cyborg at this point.
He's like 50%, 60% droid.
Right. So just cover up your face and you're basically a droid.
And that proves to be a benefit to them later on.
Right.
I also do love his disguise. I bet you they're going to do a Funko Pop of like all the different looks for the Bad Batch. So you're going to have the disguises and you're going to have the...
Yeah, you know, they just dropped Mando season 2 Funkos yesterday. And I was surprised not to see a Fennic Shand Funko because, you know, they did a Boba Fett one with this little skirt or whatever he has. And I was like, I wonder why they didn't do one for Mando season 2 yet. And I think that's because they're going to do one for Bad Batch instead. So I don't know if they're going to do it. They may do both. I don't know. But I'm assuming they're going to do it for Bad Batch only because they want to get more, you know, merch out of that. They already have plenty of merch for, you know, Mando. So I feel like they might do it for...
I just assume at this point, if Bad Batch can wring money out of gullible people who constantly are buying these tiny plastic abominations, that they're going to wring as much money out of those poor unfortunate souls as humanly possible. Bradley, how's your credit card debt looking unrelatedly?
Well, seeing how I just dropped $100 on all the... I'm just kidding. No, I only spent $50 on Mando.
Oh, he's responsible.
So yeah, because I didn't buy every single one. I left one out. And then as I was buying them from Target's website, I realized that one of them was a GameStop exclusive. So I had to basically pay double for a GameStop exclusive Baby Yoda, which is annoying, but...
You did it anyway.
Yeah, but I had to pay for shipping, which fucking sucks. And it's like, that's why I hate GameStop. Like, I just wish they had like some kind of like... I'm like, I've bought so much shit from you guys. Why can't you just give me like free shipping? Like, I don't understand. It doesn't cost you any money to ship fucking a tiny little Baby Yoda Funko. So why? Like, come on.
So we move into the next scene, which I'm rushing into because I really, really, really want to talk about this scene. Mm-hmm. This is my favorite scene in the entire episode. They come across a procession of Imperial troopers that are marching. They're not quite stormtroopers yet, but the clone troopers, the Imperial troopers that are marching. We have Rampart in the background with the chain code, and the crowd absolutely goes wild for these troopers.
Yeah.
And Omega's like, why are they cheering? And Hunter's like, well, the war is over. And Omega's like, well, isn't the war being over a good thing? And the response is, depends what side you're on.
Right.
That little exchange with the whole idea of the people cheering, because by this point, the galaxy's been at war for so long, they're exhausted.
Yeah, they really don't care.
A symbol of the war ending, they're happy to see it. Even if it's, from our outsider perspective, space fascism is bad.
Yeah, I like to compare this to, I believe it might be the Empire Day episode of Rebels,
Mhm.
where the crowd does not like the celebration going on. There's lots of people who are like, boo, Empire, boo. It's a difference what 20 years makes, obviously, when
Definitely.
a new regime takes over to when they leave, so it's I thought that was a weird like parallel to what we've seen before, where people like throw rocks at the stormtroopers and stuff, whereas now they're like cheering them on. And
Yeah, it's definitely a different era. And I like this because the dark times kind of all get lumped together
Mhm.
historically. And it's nice to see that, the empire really was cheered because people thought, oh, it's going to make things more secure. Oh, it's going to make things safer. The war is over. The separatists won't be able to come back. It's great. And then 18 years later, it's like, actually, this kind of sucked a lot. I love this scene. This scene is great. And I love the line, it depends what side you're on.
Mhm.
Because when you really stop to think about it, nobody really won this war.
I guess maybe the people kind of
Palpatine
won.
won.
Yeah, yeah. I guess
Palpatine won.
he's the only real winner
The
because
Republic was dissolved.
yeah,
The Separatists were destroyed. Nobody really, the Jedi were almost wiped out. Nobody really won this war. So for people to cheer, like, is really quite ominous and disconcerting. I love that detail that's in it from the writers. So as our repairs start, um, back at the ship, Hunter and Omega and Echo visit a shop. There's a little doll that Omega picks up
mhm.
that kind of looks like an older version of the doll from Rogue One.
I would argue that it is a first edition version of whatever doll is from Rogue One. I mean,
She needs to get that. She needs to buy that and keep it for 20 years, and she could sell
right.
it for a fortune.
She could, but although the one that she buys isn't in its original packaging, so it's worthless basically. So because
Yeah.
then some dog eats it at one point, and so it's like,
We'll get to the dog thing. I have notes about the dog thing. We'll get to that. I was reminded of Stormy from that's the stormtrooper's name. That stormtrooper doll's name, by the
oh,
way,
it is.
in Rogue One. Yes,
Oh, I did not know
it is
that.
Stormy. And
Stormy the doll.
fun fact, I'm pretty sure I would have to go back and double check this. We'll see if I can say something that I didn't check beforehand and that I can actually get it right this time. I believe Jen Urso's last thoughts before it's evaporated by the Death Star blast are of that doll.
Oh, strange.
I would
Interesting.
need to double check that.
That might be in the actual novelization of the movie or
It
something.
is. It
Okay.
is. It's in the novelization.
Gotcha. Yeah, I noticed that the doll had the Clone Wars era helmet on instead of the Stormtrooper helmet, which obviously would make sense at this point. But I just thought it was funny that they would have even changed the helmet on the dolls to match.
Yeah, it may be a newer doll because that armor was being used for about a year or so prior to this. The shopkeeper won't take their detonator, but he does mistake Echo for a droid and offers to buy him.
Which I did not like because he's like, that droid looks like I'd buy that thing, and he's like, well, this is just like a military prototype. You don't want this thing, like why do you have it then? What's so valuable about it?
The
Like,
shopkeeper does not ask a lot of, for a guy who's concerned about a reputable business, the shopkeeper does not ask a lot of questions he should be asking.
yeah, like what does it do? What is its function? Like he
Why
just
does
looks
it
at it
have a
like,
gun?
yeah, he doesn't really seem to care, which is weird, but
Just drops 3,000 credits on this thing.
right.
Echo also takes being called a droid surprisingly well, considering, the trauma that he's endured and how he reacts to the droids on Camino. He takes being called a droid surprisingly well.
I mean, he does kind of scoff a little bit. He's kind of like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Like, at least get a good price for me. Like,
I mean, yeah, I would have thought he would be a little bit more
offended.
offended by it but he takes it in his stride. And as the shopkeeper is leading not a droid, Echo, away, Omega encounters a familiar dog type thing.
Some kind of puppy.
Now, did you recognize the some kind of puppy, Bradley? Because I
Um,
recognized it immediately.
okay, see, the only reason why I know you recognize it is because I believe it's on that terrible other show that you watched.
It was on the basically all right show, Star Wars Resistance. That is the same species as Buggles.
Buggles, which is a what? What kind of species is he? I wrote it down, but I just wanted to know if you knew it off the top of your head.
I did not research. I did not. So I Googled to make sure that it was the same. I Googled Buggles, but I never actually clicked on the Wikipedia article to write down exactly what the species was.
He's a Vorpack.
He's a Vorpack.
That's what it's called. It's a
Bradley always has to come in with one piece of trivia that I didn't bother to look up.
Yeah, the Vorpack Buggles, owned by Tora Doza.
Yep, Buggles is a staple of that show, which I'm sure we will cover at some point on the show. In between, we will discuss. We'll see if we can't change Bradley's mind on this show.
I do have a fun fact about the Vorpack, though. I just because I did look it up now.
What is your fun fact?
So from Solo, Kira often wears a shirt lined with Vorpack fur. So her fur coat basically is Vorpack.
Oh man, she's wearing she's Cruella de Vil.
She is. She's Cruella de Vil. She takes the Vorpack puppies and she gets exactly 101 of them to create her coat.
The puppy takes her doll and runs off. Echo takes over supervising the droids. The 3PO unit's like, "You're not a droid. I'm gonna report this deception." And Echo just pulls out his gun that he kept.
Right.
And is like, "Yeah, you can file a complaint with me."
I'm the complaints department.
I'm the complaints department, he says as he takes the safety off. But back in the street, Omega runs into Fennic Shand herself.
Which, by the way, I love how they did this scene because they show Fennic kind of stalking her a little bit. And then she realizes, like, oh shit, like I'm lost. Like Omega's like, I just ran away in this unknown city. I don't know where I am. And Fennic Shand comes up to her like this concerned, like nice lady who's like, oh my God, are you lost? Like, do you need some help? Like, I can help you. It's totally fine. And then Omega's like, oh yeah, thank you so much.
I immediately trust you.
She's got a lot to learn, clearly, because when are you ever going to trust? Never trust a stranger in Star Wars.
Stranger danger.
There's no good people in Star Wars. Never trust a stranger in Star Wars.
Absolutely. Unless they're like a hooded and robed figure, in which case you can probably trust them.
Mm-hmm.
But Fennic Shand does not have a hood or a robe, so we know that we cannot trust her. She gives Omega some arguably bad life advice.
Street smarts.
About and it's an interesting contrast to what she's always been told, which is, we got to follow the rules, etc. And Fennic Shand's like, nah.
Yeah, I actually kind of like that because it gives more, if anything, gives more backstory to Fennic, right? Like where she kind of comes from, what her life was like before she was a bounty hunter or something, because that trick that she learns when she bumps into the lady and then she steals the fruit, if you think about it, it's like, oh, she learned that on the streets. Like there's something there where she picked that up from being a kid who probably had to fend for herself or something. And it was just like a very again, going back to Solo, reminded me of Kira and Solo when they were kids. And that was their whole backstory, was that they were working for the crime syndicate, trying to steal stuff to stay alive, basically.
Omega also offers to let Fennic join them, which personally I know it wouldn't happen, but I would love to see the Bad Batch and Fennic Shand team up.
Yeah, I have a weird thought when she said that. She's like, oh, you can come with us on all shit. And I was like, are they setting this up for the end of the season or something? Like where Fennic is going to realize like, oh, I don't care about the Empire. I'm just going to join these guys because their cause is more closer to what I want to do than what...
Or they'll probably just like offer her a bunch of money.
Yeah, I know. I just thought it was really weird. I was like, are they trying to like set up something for the end, like where she's gonna be a good person. But I was like, wait, but that doesn't work with her character
It
in Mando, so I don't know.
depends. It depends. We will get in a few notes. We're gonna blow through the rest of the episode here because it's not a lot.
Yeah.
But we're gonna get to who she might be working for and how that might inform where this is going with her.
Yeah. Okay.
But Hunter gets them. Hunter tracks them down because that's kind of his thing.
Right.
A fight breaks out. I like that Omega's reaction when Fennec starts firing isn't to run away. It's to reach up and grab the gun above her head and pull it down.
Yeah, that was really smart. I was like, okay.
I did like that detail that, again, she's fighting strategically. We get some back and forth with some different scenes bouncing around here. Basically, the droids leave the shop, which is hilarious, go back to the ship, and they're fixing it up. Astromechs just generally being the most useful things in Star Wars.
Clearly.
Wrecker, so Omega goes down into the sewer, eventually, runs down in there. Wrecker follows her in. So it's just the time-honored Star Wars tradition of running into the sewer. I'm always reminded of, like, there was a runoff grate. So it wasn't a sewer, but when I was a little kid growing up in Georgia, behind our house there was a creek that actually was runoff from the grates on the streets. And we had an entrance that we could actually go inside. So it's always, every time I see somebody running around in the sewer, I'm reminded of me being a kid going inside this outflow pipe of just runoff water from the street. That's just a little story about me growing up.
I was like, did you have one of your 10, or what was it? They have like 4 of them. One of your 4 adoptive fathers watching you on a security cam, jumping into the sewer and being like, oh, she's in the sewer.
Yeah, Tech very much is the guy in the chair in this episode, briefly.
Just for like a second. I just thought it was a fun little moment. He was like, because they use the same security cameras in A New Hope that they shoot, which I thought was a weird, like, I was like, oh, I know what that is. Because I always thought it was weird when I watched it in A New Hope, whenever they blow up all the different security cameras, and they just flip the same footage and they just repeat the same footage.
I have the Lego Death Star, the Lego, like, massive one with all the different rooms in it, and they have in the detention block, they have one of those little cameras in there.
I like those cameras. I think they're fun.
I think they're great. But Wrecker actually follows them down in there and confronts Fennic Shand as Omega runs away. Wrecker is immediately effortlessly beaten by Fennic Shand. I worry a bit with Wrecker that he's gonna wind up being the Worf effect character for this show.
What does that mean?
So the Worf effect, I'm gonna get all of everybody mad at me, but I have to talk about Star Trek for a minute.
Blasphemy.
I know, it's horrible. It's awful. Never go look at my IMDb page. You will be horrified by some of the things I've been in. In Star Trek, The Next Generation, there is a character called Worf who is a Klingon. He's supposed to be, he's like the chief of security or something for the ship. I've been in more Star Trek than I've actually watched. But he's supposed to be like the best fighter on the Enterprise. So every time they have a villain that they need to establish as a real, like, powerful threat, they just have a beat up Worf. So Worf, despite it be saying that he's the most capable on the ship, he gets beat up more often than not to establish our villain is threatening. So the Worf effect is the name for that specific trope, where you have a character who's established to be a really good fighter, but is constantly being beat up by villains to establish that the villains are powerful. I worry that Wrecker is going that direction.
I definitely felt like in this episode, at least in particular, they had to show that Fennec was a good bounty hunter, a good fighter, a good whatever. So when they put her up against Wrecker, it only took her a second to knock him out. And I thought that was maybe like kind of sacrificed Wrecker's character a little bit for the plot, but I mean, I don't know. I can deal with it only because I think Fennec is supposed to be a pretty good, character. Like she is a good fighter. She is a good, she is a serious kind of character because in Mando they established
she's portrayed by Ming-Na Wen. Obviously, she's
right.
one of the most capable characters in this series.
I just mean because like in Mando, they do say she's one of the most dangerous bounty hunters out there. So they have to kind of back that up a little bit with this kind of background they're telling us. So I'm fine with it. Kill him.
Part of the benefit to the series focusing on one specific group of people as opposed to Clone Wars bouncing around, and this was a benefit that Rebels had as well, was that we have time now to explore these different people. So I'm hoping Wrecker gets an episode that really does here very soon, because he's mostly been either comic relief or he's been beaten up to establish the villain is threatening. So I'm hoping we get some more screen time from him just to establish there may be more to him than that.
Right.
Omega crawls up. So we go from the sewers. We're just covering all of the Star Wars chase locations this episode. Yeah. So we go from the sewers up to the skyline.
Yeah, how did she get all the way up there? Like
I guess watching the ladder led like
all the way up to a tower,
the sewer to the top of the tower.
Yeah, I thought that was a little weird, but whatever. I'm willing to suspend my disbelief for like 3 seconds to be like, okay, she's on top of a tower now.
I mean, it's Star Wars. You got to suspend your disbelief for a lot longer than that.
Right.
So she slips and like as something like blows up, she slips and she's hanging off. This whole sequence and then the sequence that follows reminded me a lot of Attack of the Clones with the speeder chase, and then to a lesser extent, Star Wars Bounty Hunter.
Yeah, no, it definitely did, because the whole chase scene with the speeders and the cars and the flying and the everything. I mean, it was very Anakin falling from 5,000 feet or whatever. I mean, whatever ridiculous height that he fell
and
from.
Just landing casually.
Landing casually on a car. Like, no big deal.
I'm reminded of like Bounty Hunter, how you would have to jump around between different things, but there was also there were also levels on Coruscant. See, I haven't played a game with actual levels in a while. I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that I can get a Switch soon and play some of the old Star Wars games they just released on it. So Fennec saves Omega and then immediately tosses her off the tower again. Right.
Yeah, I like how she's like, tuck and roll, kid. And then like
tuck and roll, drop.
And drops her and she doesn't tuck and roll, by the way.
There's an extended chase. At one point, they like dump the cargo. Omega dumps the cargo. And there's a shot of the guy and he's in the car just vibing.
Yes, that was like, so funny.
This is why you don't listen to your headphones while you're driving.
Exactly. And I thought it was funny because he was a little walrus guy. And I don't know. I like seeing those characters because they're just kind of fun, like especially when they don't overdo it, because we don't really see a lot of whatever Walrus Man's species is, too much anyway. And so whenever we do see them, it's fun.
When you do too many references, it can make the galaxy. This was a complaint I heard about Solo, is that you can make the galaxy feel smaller as opposed to making it feel bigger.
Right.
So I think it's a fine line. I think animation walks that line pretty well because they have a lot more time. Solo and Rogue One aired a little bit on the side of too many references. The sequel trilogy aired on the side of not enough, except for maybe Rise of Skywalker. Maybe Kate brought it back around to being just a little too many, but
yeah,
it's a careful line you have to walk. So I know this is not the case.
Yes.
But the second time I watched the episode when I was doing my note taking, I was like, the guy who Fennec like throws out of the speeder.
Yes.
And the guy Hunter steals his swoop bike from I know they're not the same guy, but they
Oh,
look like in a
with the
flash, the
model.
models look so
Yeah, it
similar.
looks very similar. Yeah.
I have chosen to believe it's the same guy who just had a really bad day.
He's just had a very bad day. That's hilarious, actually. Yeah, he was on his bike because he thought, oh, I'm just gonna make a quick trip to like the grocery store, get some groceries real quick, and come right back. I don't need my actual car. And then his bike gets stolen. He's like, oh shit. Well, I gotta run home real quick, get my car because I gotta go pick up my wife on the other side of town because she's late to her meeting and she needs the car. So he takes his car and he goes to get his wife, and then Fennic Shand throws him out of the car. I don't know. That's my backup story for the.
It's amazing. It's for our certain point of view short story collection for Bad Batch. That'll be my pitch. Is that that's the same guy?
Same guy. I'm gonna pitch that for a comic book series. It's just about that guy and all of his awful running-ins with the Bad Batch all the time. He's like the Cabbage Man from Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Exactly. They blow up Fennec with the detonator that they established earlier in the episode. Classic Chekhov's gun, which Bradley learned on an earlier episode of the show what a Chekhov's gun is. So we have a classic case of that here, set up and payoff. They're back to the ship. The astromechs have got it finished. They kind of let the droids go. It's unclear what's going to happen to them, but
Yeah, that was weird, wasn't it? It was just kind of like, okay, they're going away now. Bye.
they take off again. They discuss how Fennic Shand is a bounty hunter who's probably after Omega. Omega has this realization that like the galaxy may be a little more dangerous than she initially thought.
Mm-hmm.
And she's specifically, on Camino, she was beneath notice a lot of the time, but there are people specifically gunning for her now. So 2 more things about this episode. The Fennec shows up to the dock guy and we think she's going to shoot him.
Mm-hmm.
Because that would be the trope here. He would be executed for his failure. Instead, she basically says, you know how to contact me if they come back. She lets the guy live.
Yeah, she pays him, which I thought was...
That was a neat...
Yeah.
She did pay him his money, basically to keep him as an informant. And I went, one, that is a neat twist on the trope. Because we expect people to be executed for their failures, but she's like, nah, having an informant alive is more important to me than making a needless point.
Yeah, and I like how it kind of is good for her character too, because it makes her more interesting, I guess, as a character. Like she's not as dumb.
Smarter.
Like, yeah, she's a smarter, like she's not like, oh, she's very Thrawn-like, where she's like, yes, the villain thing for me to do would be to kill this guy for being incompetent. But the smarter thing would be like, well, they might actually come back here. So I'm going to keep him. Yeah.
It almost sounds like you have learned how to read, because in Heir to the Empire, that exact scene happens with Thrawn.
Oh, well, there you go.
So there's a section in Heir to the Empire where a bridge officer on a Star Destroyer attempts something that's a little out of the box and it fails. And everybody thinks that Thrawn is going to execute him. And Thrawn is like, no, actually, I appreciate that you attempted something strategic and out of the box to try to fix this problem.
Right.
That's actually very good. So good job. It sucks that it failed, but good job for thinking strategically and using something unorthodox. So it is a very Fennic Shand and Thrawn team up win.
Right. Hopefully soon.
The last thing I want to bring up is they mention in the Omega scene that they need to know who Fennic Shand is working for.
Mm-hmm. Okay, you have a theory?
And I do have a theory. And then we see her contact someone by comm. So it's supposed to be this big mystery. My first thought when I watched that last scene where she's like, they got away, but I'll find them. I'm like, why are they treating it like a mystery? We know it's Rampart. We know it is.
Unless it's
not. And then I stopped and I thought to myself, I was like, but what if it's not though?
Yeah, I'm on
Here's
that.
my theory.
I'm on that train. It's not.
My
What's your
theory,
theory?
she's either working for Lama Su or Nala Se.
Mm, I like that theory better. Yeah, because
That
it makes sense.
it makes sense. Lama Su said last episode we need to get one clone back.
Right.
It would make sense that they would hire a bounty hunter under the table to try to
They,
bring them back.
I mean, they hired a bounty hunter to make the Dane clones, so why wouldn't they hire one to find one?
They're big on their bounty hunters.
That's so interesting. I like that a lot, actually. This is that's a good theory. I do think it's him though. I think well actually I maybe not him, but I think you're right. It might be his assistant lady or whatever.
Nala Se.
Honestly, I
That
think it
would
might
be
her.
interesting.
I think she might be doing it kind of under the table. If you think like she kind of has like a third objective, right? Like so it's kind of like you have the Empire's objective, you have Lama Su's objective of just kind of staying in business, and then you have her third objective, which is her whatever kind of test that she's trying to do or whatever experiment she's got going on that she wants.
Nala Se's behind it all.
Yep, she's the
Nala Se is
real
Palpatine.
she's the real Phantom Menace here.
Yes, Nala Se secretly pulling the strings of the galaxy.
Well, we'll have to find out what happens next week. Maybe she's the one who's gonna call Rex and be like, "Hey, Rex, can you get Omega for me?" And then he'll somehow turn and get Omega.
Yeah,
I'm trying to come up with stuff.
Because I don't know if we're gonna go to that planet that they were going to go to.
Yeah, I'm wondering if that's out.
I wonder if there's going to be some reason that they can't go there, that they have to go somewhere else.
Yeah, because maybe it was too close to the other planet. So they're like, okay, we got to find something farther away.
Zygeria has got to be soon because the promotional materials show Echo with the bow, that's probably where she picks up the bow.
Omega with the bow.
You wanna hazard a guess, Bradley? Since you were right about Fennic Shand, you want to hazard a guess? Is next episode Rex or not?
I can't remember in the trailer her with the energy bow. Did that what I don't remember what that planet looked like, but I feel like that is its own episode that does not have to do with the Rex episode. So I think
they're two different planets.
So I'm thinking if I'm gonna do my psychic Night Sister witch powers, I'm gonna say the next episode is where we get Omega with energy bow weapon for some reason. They're gonna somehow find the weapon, somehow she learns how to use the weapon, and they have to it's a detour episode. I feel like the next episode is a detour episode, and then it's Rex episode. I think that's maybe where we're going.
I would say that's probably the best theory. The last point I want to bring up is you mentioned Omega somehow knowing. You know what we haven't seen in the first 3 non-premiere episodes?
What?
We haven't seen Omega consciously use the Force.
So if you want your theory of her being a Force sensitivo to be correct, then that would have to be the next episode, right? Of them hinting at.
They have to bring it up at some point.
Right.
Yeah, it's interesting that you were focused more on the character and things like that than her being necessarily like what she might be there for, what she might have been created for. So it's interesting. I just wanted to bring that up before we ended, that we haven't seen that, but it's still in the back of my mind. So we'll be keeping an eye out for it.
Well, we'll keep an eye out next week. We'll see what happens on the episode of Band Bench.
We will. So go ahead and if you want to keep up with the show, follow us on Twitter at Goldsquadrongays, on Instagram at Goldsquadrongays. You can also follow me on Twitch at CWRogers6. We've been playing Star Wars games on Mondays when these episodes drop. And we will see you guys next week.
Every Monday with another episode of Goldsquadrongays.
I want to die.
Bye.
I mean, this is why tops exist, is to open jars for you.
Eye roll emoji.
He literally just did an eye roll, like his eyes rolled up into the back of his head.